What is going on? Welcome back to another great episode of Activate LA. Today, man, we have a special show prepared for you guys. Joining me in the panel, we have Melissa. Melissa, welcome to the stream, and we have Miss Jess back in the house. How you ladies doing?
Good. Excited to be here.
Okay, great. Once again, thank you so much for joining the live stream and doing the show. To me, I've been following this case for a long time, and maybe some people even think that I'm crazy. You know what I mean? You don't even know the person. And at first, I was like, trying to help and find
hmm
little clues there. But how did you get into the case, or when was the first time that you heard about it?
for me, it was so her aunt Laurie actually.
Mhm.
She has a couple of different travel accounts. So she has one that deals with the Hudson Valley, which is where I live. And
Oh,
so I follow that account. And so she posted Hannah's missing persons like flyer on that account. And I saw it and I was like, oh, that's interesting, and just posted it on my TikTok. And then it kind of took off from there. And that was it. It kind of, I mean, it was really easy to get into it in the beginning because we did have a lot of really interesting information, like
mhm.
text messages and stuff like that. So it was easy to like want to do a deep dive into it in the beginning. But yeah, it was from Aunt Laurie's
Yeah,
travel
we're gonna
page.
get deep
Mm-hmm.
into that because I kind of have a similar thought, and it's no hate, towards them. They think people are hating on them and this and that. I wish them well, but just like many people too, I do wish to hear Hannah let us know, and answer some questions, text messages.
Yes. Yeah.
They took my identity. Like, what was that? What's
Right. Right.
um, so to you, up to what part did this case started kind of sounded like something wasn't they weren't telling us the truth, kind of per se, or something was wrong.
Um, for me, it was when they weren't like giving us a timeline of events. I thought that was so weird. I was just like, this is kind of 101 for missing persons. You want to establish a timeline of events. And the fact that we had to beg for them to make that, I thought was kind of weird. But I was like, I don't know, whatever. They're going through a lot. Again, it's kind of like what you were saying. You don't want to like bad talk anybody or,
Hmm.
but yeah, it was at that point I started thinking that something wasn't right. Like, why wouldn't you want all this information to go out there where you last saw her? They weren't verifying anything either. Um,
Yeah.
like they never would say if somebody said, "Oh, we saw her here," or they never ever would say, "Yes, this is verified." No, that's not verified. So it was a lot of that in the beginning, but it was always like, oh, they're going through a lot. They're going through a lot. So we don't want to question. And it wasn't until Steve Fisher, that investigator,
Yeah.
went and was like, this is not what everybody thinks it is. It was then when I started to change my thinking on it. There you go.
Sorry. I don't know what happened.
But yeah, it wasn't too, we were just saying, Jess, like what was the turning point when we started to think like something's not adding up in this. And I was saying for me, it was when we couldn't get simple information or simple answers to information, like a timeline or something, is when
Yeah.
it's like, huh, that's weird. Why are they not providing us with that? But, and then of course, when Steve Fisher put out his whole Twitter thing about it not being, what we thought it was, then it kind of blew it wide open. But yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was not only the timeline that we kind of were trying to get from the family, right? Like, what are the solid events? What are the solid things that you guys know that the public doesn't know yet? What
Right.
can we help. You know, you guys are asking for like public information, or not public information, but the public plea for help. And then the only thing that they could provide is facts based on like what they're talking about versus like putting everything together from sporadically from what we hear on the news versus what we hear from them. So it was kind of really hard to kind of dumb it down to like, okay, like where did we last see her? Where was she last seen? Who last saw her? And, you know, where was she last checked into? All that kind of stuff. So it was a crazy timeline, especially when all like the different text messages that we see are coming from like the friends and the family. And it was just kind of confusing on like where
who they were from, who the text
Exactly.
messages were even from, like no
Right.
verification.
Yeah, so it was just really hard. I mean, and then, you know, as you're like researching this case and you're kind of looking into it, I think me and Melissa, you know, Melissa and I were digging and digging, researching, and everything that we went to was a bigger rabbit hole. So we're like, oh, okay, well, maybe she's, you know, like with this, you know, scary person. But then we all of a sudden it's revealed later on down the road that this person wasn't really a scary person, or, you know, that she was in an alarming situation. So it was just like, okay, there's one rabbit hole after another. So, you know, it's like, what are the answers? And it was just it's kind of frustrating because the whole entire process, as we're learning more about this case, it was hard to really find like the solidity behind every single question that we had, right? Because it was like, first off, when we looked in the itinerary, who's Alan, right? That came out in the very beginning. And who's Amun, you know? And as far as we knew as the public is that was just her ex-boyfriend who was going on the road with her. You know, so we were like, okay, well, what's going on there? How come nothing's been questioned with that? And then later on, we find out more and more information.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was like the most infuriating part of the whole thing, was that they would get so upset at us for getting things wrong, or like speculating. Like that was always the big thing, was like, you guys are speculating. And it's like, well, help us then not to speculate and clear up this very basic, very simple thing, so that we have a clear idea of what's going on here. But they never did that. So all we could kind of do was just speculate at that point, you know? Yeah, it was like infuriating. It got to a point where I was just like, I don't know what's going on with these people. This is like too much.
Will Auntie join us today? No, I'm gonna leave the link for either Auntie or Hannah. You know, maybe this could be the day that, you know, maybe
wouldn't that be amazing?
she's just like, I'm tired of this guy ActivateLA, you know, and I'm gonna just shut his mouth, and that'd be great. You know, I think a lot of people will be happy. Any questions that you guys still have towards the case, or something in a specific that you guys will say, this still, you know what I mean, it's doesn't add up, or you guys will like answers?
For us, or for the people that are watching?
For you, that, yeah.
For me, I think my questions, I think like along with everybody else's, is like, what were Hannah's intentions? You know, why did she leave those crazy cryptic text messages and make everyone in fear that she was getting trafficked, or, you know, she was in harm's way? Why did she leave off on that note? You know, why didn't she tell her aunt, like, hey, she was just going to go do her own thing, and not have her aunt, you know, wait up for her or worried about her? You know, those are the main questions I have for Hannah. And also, you know, I mean, in a sense, like, coming back and not addressing the whole situation, I think is a huge deal for me too. I think a lot of people too can agree to that. You know, not addressing the situation, not addressing your father, not addressing any of your family in that sense or regard, I think is a little alarming, and just kind of irresponsible in that sense. Those are my main questions. You know, there are little other like minor questions, of course, but I think the biggest question is, you know, now that she's safe, did she even know that, you know, this whole thing, did she truly know that this whole thing was going on without her knowing? Or did she actually know, but she was just trying to evade and escape all of it, you know? So those are like my biggest questions that I have.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, I would really like to know just what is up with the original text messages. Why send your roommate those text messages? What was the meaning with the messages to whichever aunt? I still think we're confused on that, but like the whole matrix style, what does all that mean? Like, I don't understand that, but I think for me, we would get the most understanding of what happened by just her saying what the deal was with the original text messages to the roommate, because then it's like, okay, were you in danger? Were you not in danger? Were you afraid of your ex? Is this just because you were not like in your right frame of mind? Like, yeah, I would like to know what the original text messages were, and then also just if her and Laurie did plan something.
Yeah.
Because Sydney, we know Sydney put up these messages on Facebook and still continues to post like kind of cryptic-y stuff, you know? But Sydney being like, this whole thing was orchestrated. Okay, what do you mean by that? You know?
What part was orchestrated? Was it all
Right.
orchestrated? Was some of it orchestrated? What do you know that the general public doesn't know that you're trying to say but not say fully? You know, I feel like the whole family is cryptic in some way or another, you know, and it's just like, just give the full straight out answer. I think a lot of the problem is that a lot of the family doesn't want to take accountability for each of their own actions, which makes this whole case very head spinning for everybody. And so no one wants to be 100% truthful in every situation, every question asked. I think it's just a pointing fingers game, you know, and nobody wants to look like the bad guy at the end of the day. Because this got so public and so like, you know, blown up, you know, into the world's eyes, right? So, and, you know, like obviously they should have some shame. I would feel shame, you know, like if you've got people on the ground searching, you know, in Skid Row and in these scary, dangerous places, you know, and then you don't even address the people that actually were there to help you. And speaking of that, you know, in front of, you know, as regards to Sydney and Laurie, who were in the Sydney in the very beginning was like pushing, but Laurie, you know, obviously taking over like the search and all of this and blasting this out there. And you were on the ground with people searching. And so you know that people on the ground were working really hard with you and had your back, supported you and your family. And the minute that Hannah is supposedly found safe, then you just kind of ditch everybody that actually helped you and really cared, genuinely cared to help look for Hannah and cared about her well-being. So it's just like, okay, well, what's your motive there and what's your intention, you know?
That's something that I would want to know from like Sydney specifically, because they each kind of seem like between like Laurie and Sydney and Hannah's mother, clearly there's like, you know, the divide between them. It seems like they all have different reasons for like being upset at each other or something, or each of them knew something different or whatever. But I guess I think it's interesting that like out of all the people, Sydney was the one now like with the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Where did that go? Right? Like, because in the beginning, that GoFundMe was for search parties and all this stuff. And then they changed the description of the GoFundMe to like paying for a lawyer and everything like that. And it's like, well, if this was for Hannah, right? Wouldn't you be paying for Hannah's lawyer and not like Sydney's lawyer? It just, it doesn't make any sense. And I think everyone now is trying to like distance themselves as much as possible and almost like forget about what happened, which I get to an extent, but I think it's making them look worse than better.
Well, I think a lot of it too is that the truth is starting to like reveal itself very slowly. And like details are coming out now that a lot of people didn't know.
Right.
And, you know, once they see that the truth is starting to come out, there now they for sure have to like zip their mouths and not say anything more, because the more they say, the more everybody's going to dig and try to look for the true answers. And the fact that like we know now, and we had discussed this prior, like, and still to this day, that the GoFundMe has not been used for Ryan Kobayashi's funeral or towards anything of that. Yeah. So that is really disheartening, and it's a huge letdown. I mean, you know, of course, like the public's going to have their opinions, but, you know, you're asking people for money, for donations, you know, on Ryan's behalf, which is so heartbreaking. And then you see none of it go towards that, just makes the situation even worse, and now there's this whole debacle with, because as you guys know, there was a separate GoFundMe for Ryan's funeral that was held by, I believe the niece as well. And the beneficiary was Lee, who was Ryan's fiance. So that was a separate GoFundMe for his funeral expenses. And then Sydney had later changed a description for her GoFundMe that some of the expenses were going to be, or some of the donations were going to be towards that, right? So I just know to this day, none of those GoFundMe expenses from Sydney's has been given towards Ryan's funeral expenses. And the latest update that I had was that he'd still not had a service yet, and expenses were not used, or, donations were not used yet for expenses. So we're not sure of how much of the money from Sydney's GoFundMe is going towards these supposed funeral expenses, or what is really behind the scenes and what she's really doing with this money. It's never been expressed. It's never been shown as an allocation of this much is going to search groups in LA, this much was going to hotels. That none of that was ever allocated and broken down or itemized to let people know where all the money was going. And it's just even more suspicious now that, time and time I have asked her, and I'm sure many people have asked her on Facebook groups. I'm sure Melissa's asked her, a lot of people that were helping in this case, just to take Sydney's side and, her family's side and say, hey, look, to stop all the rumors about where this GoFundMe crap is coming from, just stop everybody talking about it, come out with a spreadsheet that's showing where your money is going so people can know exactly where it's being funded to. Because if you do that, then people have more of a peace of mind of knowing where their money is being allocated to instead of just questioning you all the time. But she didn't do it, and so that's just kind of like, that's on her that she didn't do that. And I really honestly wish that she did, because it would have alleviated a lot of people's, curiosities and hate towards her, of telling her and accusing her of like, hey, you just scammed everybody, and we don't know. Nobody knows where the money's at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they say that they have their receipts for it, but we don't know.
Well, then show us the receipts. I mean, like, it would be one thing if it's their money and they wouldn't have to show receipts because that's their own private money, But if you're dealing with the public's money, you have to show receipts. By law, it's legal that you have to show receipts of where you're allocating this donated money. That's how it is for like any 501c3 who's receiving donations. You have to show, and when you file taxes, like where your money is going from donations, So
yeah.
So that's going to be a thing on her end, if she's filing taxes and,
Yeah, they'll have to figure that out, I guess, at some point, But yeah, I really am curious what happened to it. It's gone. I mean, I'm sure it's gone. Like if she was using it for a lawyer or whatever, I'm sure it's gone by now. So.
Yeah, but like what would she have spent on that? That lawyer, that Sarah Azari lawyer, really just put out a Twitter statement.
Well, I do think for like after Hannah came back, there was like 2 weeks or so that everybody was quiet. Nobody said anything. And I think at that point it was a lot of like lawyer talk going on and work going on, because then they all came back like right away. So I wonder like what kind of negotiations were going on at that point. Maybe there were negotiations like about the GoFundMe or something, like that some should be allocated to Hannah or Laurie, or like, I don't know. I hope that we see something about that GoFundMe. I would be surprised if we do, honestly, at this point. I think that they're all trying to like go away right now. Like I think they're really trying to just fade into obscurity at this point. Like I noticed that Laurie changed even like her social media accounts, like the profile pictures and everything, all got changed.
She blocked everybody that would talk about the case on her page.
Yeah.
As well.
Anybody that watches Jess's stream, we're all blocked now.
Yeah.
I've been blocked for a long time. I was like the first one. Yeah, for whatever reason, it's so funny. I didn't really understand why she blocked me at the beginning, because I never said anything about her, like in any of my videos, never said anything. And then she started you know, just like going on different accounts and commenting on my pages and stuff, and tried to take the high road. I didn't even want to address it. And then I was just like, listen, this is what's going on, whatever, just stop. And actually she did. Like, I don't recall her doing anything else. I mean, she would say stuff like on her own page that was kind of like nonsense, and I'm like, whatever. But it was stuff like that too that made me look at this and be like, this is not normal behavior. Like, your niece is being trafficked, and you're going on social media and like trolling people's accounts. This is not normal. You should not be. It was the most bizarre thing. Like, I guess somebody said people could sue her. I don't know if you're talking about like Laurie or whatever, but there was actually another account. Remember that girl that was on, she made an account like way later on in the game. She didn't have many followers or anything. I can't remember her name, but she made an account. She maybe only had like 200 followers or something, like talking about the case or whatever. And then her account got taken down. Like,
that Jenny girl.
She took it down because she was getting harassed.
By who?
By Laurie and like people that were being sent from Laurie, supposedly. Like, the same kind of accounts that was like coming to me and saying stuff. And she got so afraid that I don't know what she was thinking they were going to do. I don't know.
She was talking more with, like, she did more of like Reddit stuff, right? If I remember.
Yeah, she was like deep diving.
Yeah, she was very deep diving into Reddit, but that's the thing I kind of like warned her about. And I was like, you don't really want to do it so crazy of a deep dive on Reddit. I mean, there's a lot of speculations on Reddit as is, and it's not like true, credible, verified sources. So I would just be careful like what you put out there, because you don't want to mislead people into straying away from the actual facts of the case. So I did tell her that, you know, just to kind of give her a heads up. I was like, good work on your end for like finding stuff. But, you know, again, you can't just rely on Reddit to be like super factual. You have to rely
it was
on
like an interesting perspective where it was somebody coming in that, you know, because we were in it for such a long time, and then she came in already now like looking at basically all the work that we did. But the fact that she had like she had no followers. Like, she had no followers. And for her to then feel like she had to stop talking about it because she was afraid that something was going to happen to her, I was like, that is so lame.
Well, I think a lot of it too was a lot of people that had followed you and I, Melissa, were already like, you know, she kind of got on the tail end of the case, right? So when she started talking about, a lot of our followers were, I believe, talking to her, saying like, you know, and tagging both of us like in a multiple of her videos. And a lot of, you know, people were saying like, why is she covering this when you guys are covering this, and just repeating what you guys are saying and then adding this stuff with Reddit. So it was just, I think it was just maybe like the overwhelming, you know, space of like having to deal with our followers going after her. Yeah, and be like, why are you covering it when Jess and Melissa are covering it already? And then you're like trying to stir the pot with more Reddit stuff, you know? So
yeah, she had some like good points. I can't remember, like, there's so much with this thing, but I just remember being like, that's so dumb. Like, who cares? Because then you see like all this, you know, the stuff that's going on now, like Blake Lively and all that, and I'm like, it's all just regurgitating all the same information. You know, I think people just choose who they prefer to hear it from. But you know, I felt bad for her. But anyway, like, that was just one of the things that I was like, this is so bizarre. This is so weird that they are taking the time to do things like this, like pick fights kind of with people online. Again, when I'm like, isn't your niece being like trafficked? And like, why should you care about any of this? Who cares, right? Their behavior was so abnormal. And I spoke to a woman about this, Shatana Nelson, who she is actually like she sits on like the National Trafficking Board. She knows about what trafficking is and what to look for and everything. And very early on in the beginning, she was like, this is not that. She was like, this is not that. I don't know what's going on, but it's not that. Trafficking is a much cleaner, smoother process than this. This is not what it looks like. And so she started giving me a lot of information that made me question, but still it's tough to question, right? When you're like, what? I don't know. Like, who do you believe? Right. But she definitely did come in and was like, no, this is not. And then she gave me the idea too to call like the missing persons unit. She was like, just call and ask them. And so I did. And, and then they were like, no, it's not trafficking. It makes you wonder how long they knew what was up, right? Like,
yeah. So I think both sides have some truth to it. Like LAPD and the family in the very beginning, before like the LAPD had the whole press conference about, Hannah crossed the border. So I think leading up to that, when they were in LA searching, and the family was in LA searching, and they were like all over downtown LA, like looking for her, and possibly finding about the guy on the metro. I think there was just a lot of like miscommunication too, and like lag from the police department at that time, because I believe that the police department, after they seen the CCTV footage of the guy, I think they found that guy like pretty quickly after that.
Very quickly.
But I don't think they told the family as quickly as when they found out the information, like the interview and all of that. So I think like there was a disconnect of like the police not telling the family on time. But then there was a whole disconnect too that we see in a whole, kind of like deceiving the public that this guy is, an unfamiliar man, and, she doesn't look well, or she looks, it looks alarming of her position. And then just, Lurie and the family side speaking, saying like, there's a fear of her being trafficked still or drugged. And then she's crying, and she's like very dramatic about it and very intense on the news about like how crazy this footage was, was to
that
be.
She never saw.
Right. Well, she did see, and then now she didn't see it. So.
Right, exactly. So we never know. We don't even know what the straight answer is with like that, where it's like, did you see the footage or did you not see the footage?
Which attributed to, when I talked with Sydney, which attributed to a lot of the reasons why Sydney pushed her and her mom away from Aunt Lurie, because, Sydney was like, well, we never saw this footage from the metro, but how is she seeing this footage? And
exactly.
we're like Hannah's direct family members.
Right.
And so like, why isn't Lurie telling us or showing us this footage that she's supposedly seen, but then telling the media, that she's seen it? So basically there you can already see that Lurie's trying to control the narrative to the public about how scary the situation was,
which
and
is
how
so weird, right? It makes you that makes you question like what was the point? What was the end game here? Like,
for me, like just kind of reflecting back on the whole situation, I just feel that the family was all together on this GoFundMe in the very beginning. That started, everybody was on board with it. They started a GoFundMe. In the very beginning, you guys remember people were even donating via Venmo because they didn't want to accrue those transaction fees. Remember Facebook?
Right. That was like a very quick thing where they were like,
so they're like, we don't
donate to our Venmo, right?
That was very sketchy, right? Because first of all, you shouldn't have people donate to your Venmo, because then it's lost in translation and transaction. And it's not properly documented, right? So for you to be like, oh, let's take away the fees and not worry about the fees and pay me on GoFundMe. So early on, when you have that GoFundMe, the whole family's on board, right? Like, so some of it's going to be used for search efforts. And I think that was genuine. I think that was a very genuine portion of it. But I think later on, when they find out more information about Hannah, and the police kept telling the family, no, she's not in danger. She's intentionally leaving. She's intentionally requesting her suitcases back. But I think the family wanted to drag the story on and make it more publicized because it already got so big. So they needed to go with the story about the trafficking and the drugging and the danger that she was in. So with the GoFundMe, with all of them together on board, they're like, okay, well, and this is really like, suspicious of them to do, or it could have been saying, and I'm just putting out here like I'm just speculating that since they were all aboard with the GoFundMe, they were basically all in it to get this money from the get-go. But obviously they dragged on the story to get more money. The longer they drag on the story, the more money they're going to get.
They got a little greedy.
The more open that this GoFundMe stays, the longer it stays open, the more money is going to be. Because as you guys seen, money was being donated every day, up until like the day she was found, though cops said that she willingly left, people were still donating. So, and they never ended it. So you can see that the longer they drug this story out, the more money they're going to get. So now I think because there was a falling out between Lurie and, Brandy and Sydney, is because of the GoFundMe. And now, you know, the money is not going to be spread out between all of them, right? Like this is a motive, right? If the family is truly greedy for money, they're going to all work together to try to get as much money as possible. But now there's a fallout, right? So that's probably what happened. You know, Lori probably wanted to use some money for obviously maybe the PI and things like that. And Sydney and the family didn't agree to do that.
Well, that was like an interesting thing, was that none of them really wanted to hire a private investigator, you know, from the very beginning. And that was always a thing where it was like, well, if the LAPD, if you feel like they're not doing their job, hire a private investigator. And it would have cost, like, I remember talking to people and they were like, they probably could have found her in a week. I mean, look at like what Steve Fisher did, not being paid to do this at all, and just calling, making some phone calls with his connections and whatever. They were like, it probably would have cost them like $5,000 to hire a private investigator, and they would have found her like right away.
And
but I think
I believe they had enough money early on.
Oh yeah, that's what I never understood that. I never understood why they just didn't want to hire a PI, like get it,
because they didn't want people to they didn't want her to be found so quickly. If they're trying to raise money,
I think they knew where she was. I do think they knew where she was, and I think they knew if they hired a PI, there was going to get a lot of information as far as that found out, like of them knowing very quickly. Like their whole thing was going to unravel very, very quickly, and they didn't want that. They didn't want that to happen. Plus, yes, they were getting like donations every single day. So why not let it just keep going? But I think they did know, like early on. I really think that they knew early on. There was probably maybe a couple of days that they thought Hannah was actually missing because she lost her phone or whatever the case is, you know. But I think after a few days, because if you look at it, like November 12th, right, is like when they last had any contact with her.
11th, and then she went to Mexico the next day.
Yeah. By November 14th, I had already put up a video. Like, so in 2 days, it was like this huge thing, right? And to me, I was like, that is so quick for this to go from like, okay, Hannah lost her phone at the airport, blah, 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 whatever, to like, oh my goodness, she's being trafficked. And like, it was just such a crazy jump in such a short period of time that didn't really like, to me, I was like, what would make them even think that? Like, why would they go to that jump right away other than to just get the public's attention, I guess? But I think that they figured out, or at least probably the police figured out really quickly, this is not that. And they told them that. They told us that. They were like, we don't, you know, they told them like she's voluntarily missing. And they were like, no. Even when Steve came out, when Steve came out with his thing and he said like, you know, this is not a trafficking case and she's voluntarily missing for whatever reasons, we have no idea. And the family came out the next day and basically were like, don't listen to him. Don't listen to anybody that says anything other than what we're telling you.
Right. They wanted to control the narrative from the get-go.
Which is bizarre for like a missing persons case. Like, it's not a story, you know? It's like, it shouldn't be what you're trying to control as like the missing person's family as much as it's like, sorry, this is like my cheap like thing here that I got. If you can hear it, it shouldn't be like we're trying to control how the story goes. It should be like you looking for the evidence and letting that lead you to the story, if that makes sense. Like it just, but I think they knew very early on what happened. And then they were like, oh, now this is this whole thing. And oh, look at all this money we could get from it. I think they just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they just decided to go with it.
I guarantee with all this national publicity, international publicity, with the LAPD involved, and then we see the FBI getting involved, they had probably found out, like you said, very early on. And whether or not, like, you know, they kept telling the family she willingly left, she had no intentions of, you know, she did it on her own intentions, on her own accord. And the family didn't want to accept that, right? So now we're faced with, oh God, like we have to we have to, as a family, have to like really change this narrative and say, you know, control the narrative and say, no, she still could be trafficked. As you guys remember, when she crossed the border, Sydney was like, well, you guys don't know that someone could be watching her from a distance, and, you know, not with her. And so trying to make the public still believe that she was actually being trafficked.
You see like how dangerous that is, right? How they're like, we don't believe it until we see it and blah, 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 blah. And like, they're literally telling you like, this is what happened. She crossed over. Here's a picture of her. Because I remember people being like, that's not her. That doesn't look like her, which was actually really interesting. So like, people are saying that totally doesn't look like Hannah. Like, look at her hair, even her body, whatever. Because all the pictures that we were shown of her were years old. So it's like, then you see her and it looks a little different than the pictures that we saw, because all the missing persons picture were years old, which was another thing, which is like, why would you use pictures that are 5 years old for a missing person?
So they can find criminals like Luigi within a nick of an eye.
Exactly.
But this whole thing is public domination with all, you know, LAPD, public, general public, and yet we still couldn't find her for like a month later. Like, that really tells me a lot that, like, I think she was easily found and the police couldn't do anything about it because she had no intentions of going missing.
Yeah, so, and then the family blew it up.
Yeah, and the family blew it up. I mean, you gotta like see that, you know, like you see all these other cases that are like blown up like this. You know, cops can see CCTV footage, FBI, I mean, they have access. If she's crossing the border, every move that she made stepping out of LA, guarantee that she had some pattern on CCTV footage at the train station, at Union Station.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's CCTV footage everywhere, you know, especially in downtown LA. So guarantee cops could have followed her tracks easily and said, this is what she did, this is where she went. Because the public was so about it and blew it up, that's why police had to address it, you know, so bad on a press conference, right? Even though she willingly left, because why are they going to waste their time, their energy, knowing how short-staffed they are, and addressing a case that doesn't need to be addressed, right? Because she is fine, she's okay, she's safe.
Yeah, I think that Laurie. So it would be interesting to know about like the signal messages between whatever aunt it was that she was talking to, but you know, somebody told me about like that informally one of the aunts was asked, most likely Laurie was asked for her phone from one of the detectives, like informally, you know, it wasn't like a formal, everybody hand over your phones kind of thing, but we have all these text messages with no context around them. And the police only saw this, like what we saw, the screenshots. So there's no context. So the detective who was working on it just informally asked, hey, can I see your phone to look at the thread? And she said no. I do think that Laurie was in touch with Hannah fairly shortly after things were happening, because I think that it's interesting that, okay, so they split ways, the family splits ways, and it's quiet. Like after they split and after Laurie leaves and goes to Palm Springs that she already had planned, it's quiet. And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later or whatever, Laurie finds Hannah. I think all during that time, like Laurie was finding a lawyer and whatever. They must have been in communication with Hannah at this point, because she met them at the border, right? Like Hannah met the lawyer and Laurie at the border. So there must have been communication and negotiation at that point. Like, please, if I come back, I don't want to be charged with anything with the green card thing or like whatever, you know. But I'm sure for a while before Hannah was actually found and crossed the border, she was in touch with a certain member of the family, and they were working on getting her back over.
Yeah, I think that, you know, like she definitely, you know, like Ray had mentioned, I think she did know someone in Mexico. I think she had some type of connection there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a lot of people say that, you know, the family says that she has no friends or people in LA. Well, if you actually take a deeper dive on Hannah's Instagram, you know, her original Instagram, okay, the Midori Reeve one, and Facebook, if you look on Facebook, she actually has a lot of friends in LA.
Yeah, so, there were people that commented on her page when she posted the picture of the Nike thing, like, oh, you're here, you know. It just goes to show how I think with anybody, but more so with her, how, her family didn't know her. She didn't have a good connection with her family, apart from maybe like Aunt Laurie. Everybody else, I think she was fairly estranged from. And I think that the plan in general was for her to come to mainland and live here for a while and live with Laurie. Because somebody did tell me actually recently, I'm not going to say who, because I want to try to keep this like communication going, but they showed me messages from Hannah saying that she is staying over in the Pacific Northwest for a while.
Oh, wow.
So I said that like a little in one of my videos where I was like, I think Hannah had nowhere to go in Hawaii. The landlord or whatever was selling the place.
Yeah.
She was stressed. Yeah, it really is like not all that, which is why I don't understand why she just doesn't say what happened, because I actually think like a lot of her actions make sense. Like, she was so stressed about losing a place to live. And even though Hannah is kind of like nomadic or whatever, it's still like a stressful situation.
Yeah.
She also, like she worked at the smoke shop. Like, I don't think she really had a clear path in her life. Really doesn't really seem like she had many true friends either. Wasn't close to her family. And so I think she wanted to start over, kind of.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's also
so
hard too. Like, I'm sure, before she had the support with Moon, right? Like when she was dating him. So she had a place with him
right.
where they could both probably afford together based on their income. But
Yeah,
now,
and then that whole thing,
that.
where it's like she was probably stressed. She was clearly stressed about that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, she was like, right. So like now that her, the landlord or the owner is selling the house, she has nowhere to go. And then especially like, no offense, but like if you have not really good credit and you're working at a smoke shop, it's very expensive to live in Maui. It's not cheap, unless you're like renting a bedroom from someone. And maybe she was strapped of like finding a place to solidly live, and have that financial like stability. So
right, which would make sense. It would make sense for her to do this whole green card marriage thing. She needed money, like, but I think the whole thing was so stressful. Like, she didn't want to go through with it. And she, I think, wanted a change of scenery, wanted to get away from everybody and focus on her creativity. Whatever. Like, I get it. And so I think that the whole thing was she was going to come here and live with Laurie and like RV it for a while and live with her.
I think that she was trying to keep that away from her direct family because they did not agree with that. And
I think that her family too, they don't get along with each other. Clearly they don't get along with each other. And I don't think that like Laurie and Hannah's mother is Brandy, right? Brandy is Hannah's mother.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they get along. So, I think that like Hannah going and saying that she's going to live with her aunt probably wouldn't have sat well. I don't know. Like families are weird, right? So like, I don't know. I think she just wanted a change of scenery and was going to come here. And I think they planned the trip to go to Mexico. I think Laurie was already in a trajectory going south because she was in the Pacific Northwest. Then she said, oh, well, I have to leave the search to get back to my influencer, thing. And I already had this trip planned in Palm Springs. And then I think from Palm Springs, her plan was to then just meet up with Hannah in Mexico, maybe do some content or whatever. And then Hannah was going to continue with them, go back to Pacific Northwest.
So my question is, when Laurie found Hannah in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
He was there for at least a week.
They were in Mexico.
Hanging out. Yeah, hanging out. So it's like, okay, Laurie, like, what were you guys doing in Mexico for that long? We're trying to figure out.
I'm sure maybe in like a month we'll get the Mexico content.
Right?
Hannah spending her Venmo money that everybody donated to her. All the margarita money on Venmo.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I think, because remember, Laurie even said to Steve where she was like, oh, we're planning on going in a week. Like, if that was my niece and I was like, oh my gosh, I know where she is now. I'm driving there right now. I'm driving there. Why would you wait a whole week? She could be like
exactly
somewhere else at that point, you know?
See,
So,
that is what made it so suspicious to me,
Yes.
right? So when I had a conversation with Laurie, this was back in, I think, December, or like right before she was found, a couple weeks or week or two before she was found. So when I talked to Laurie on the phone, you know, Jay, her husband, was basically trying to convince her not to go to Mexico. This was shortly after they found out she was in Mexico, right? According to the LAPD press conference. So when she, you know, when they found out, Jay supposedly, as Laurie was telling me, did not want to go to Mexico because it was sketchy, all this stuff. They were scared to go down there. And I was like, no, I totally get it. You know, whatever. Like maybe think about it for a few days and see if meddle on it. Like, 'cause this was the whole thing about when Sarah Azari was coming out with like, she was going to send people down there to search for her. So then I was like, okay, well, I don't know. Maybe you guys should just kind of work with them. Maybe you got to figure out someone that knows the lay of the land down there, you know, a little bit better than you guys do. Someone that speaks Spanish that could help you guys to go down there and search for her. So when I was talking with her about that, you know, she kind of was she didn't really want to go down there. But after the whole thing about, you know, when I was trying to connect her with Steve Fisher and like trying to get, you know, through his Twitter post saying like, I know where Hannah is. And, you know, Laurie saying, I don't know who this SF guy is, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, he has her location, hit him up. Here's his information. If you're looking for Hannah and you want to get her and that's your end goal, then freaking go find her. And then she writes this text message to Steve saying that, hey, I plan on being in Mexico next week. And I'm like, next week, girl, like go now. Like you're in Palm Springs. You're only 2 hours away. Just go now.
Right.
You know, so the reason why of her waiting those 2 weeks, that's a question I'd like to know, you know, as well. Like why?
I think because they knew. I think they
No,
knew.
I think
Maybe she was already gone there.
Yeah, they were like,
from that point on, it was planned. I think from that point on, it was planned because you're not going to go into Mexico if she doesn't have a reservation or somewhere to stay. Where's she going to stay in her RV somewhere in Mexico?
Yeah,
you know, like
they'll dismantle that thing.
Yeah, no, she was fine. She was there. I think they knew. I think they knew early on that she was there because there was no urgency. You never felt a sense of urgency in this case, like ever, for anybody to do anything. Yeah. And I think like Sarah Azari, the lawyer, I think her saying all that stuff, like we're going to deploy teams. Like I think she was just saying that. Like
just to say it.
You're right. I don't think she ever was going to send anybody. If anything, I think maybe it was just like a scare tactic for Hannah. Because I think Hannah knew. Like, I really do think that she knew this whole thing was happening. I think if anything, it was just like a tactic to be like, you better come out from wherever you are, or like say, I don't know. I don't think she ever had a plan.
No, I think a big part of it was to ease the public's mind, saying like they're going to do something about it because
that too.
Was like, you guys need to figure this out. Like, go down there as their family, like figure it out, work with Mexican authorities, whatever it is.
Right.
And so I think that's why Sarah Azari had said, you know, we're going to send the search team down there, is because to alleviate the public's worry and anxiety about not finding her down there. Now that
just
the cops
to like pacify everybody asking, like, what are you going to do? And they're like, well, we're going to send like the A team down there. And it's like,
nothing
okay,
came out of that.
You know, they're not going to find much.
Nothing came out of that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know. I really hope that because I don't think I don't think that the answer to this whole entire thing is all that. Like I said, I think that this is actually a pretty just like boring, straightforward story of what happened. I don't think it's anything crazy. I think that it was just like got blown out of proportion, and maybe that's why they're like not saying anything, because it was so dumb, like, and just like a whoopsie essentially. That I think that they're just like not saying anything because they want to try do a documentary or something to like get people to stay interested and watch, and they're going to reveal what happened in this thing, and it's going to be a big letdown for everybody. But they're just like,
buy it.
Huh?
Tubi will buy it instead of Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
You guys think now that Alan's the husband, right?
The fake husband.
So now is he gone now? I mean, she's gonna eventually have to divorce, right? I mean,
Yeah, so I just saw that he had a recent Instagram post, and he was kind of like doing a tribute to Maui, and he posted several photos of him and his actual girlfriend, Mariana.
Oh, did Hannah
And
make it?
some
Hannah
of his,
didn't make it.
huh?
Yeah. Hannah
No,
didn't
Hannah
make
didn't make it to the post, I guess. I guess that was
Yeah,
the
not
highlight of
the
his life in
tribute.
Maui.
it.
But it looks like he was just kind of like saying like an au revoir to Maui and how it's, changed him, and, he'll remember it always forever,
Oh,
the
I'm sure
magic
he
and beauty
will. I'm sure
of
he
Maui.
will.
Yeah, so he definitely is gone now. I haven't heard from him actually. I was debating on reaching out back to him again to maybe see if he's settled in where he's at, because I think
You should.
when he told me that he was leaving in a few days, I think that actually extended out further, because as we saw, like, he was trying to sell some things off Facebook Marketplace for a little bit. So we'll see where he's at. But I guarantee now that he's probably gone back to his country, maybe to avoid a lot of legal stuff too, I would say.
But
He
it
can make it
doesn't. I
work.
don't. I don't think that they were like legally married or anything. So I think as far as like a divorce or something goes, I don't think they have to deal with.
Oh, okay.
Like
But
to
wasn't there like a certificate that supposedly the mom found? Like
It was like I think it was just papers for like a lawyer that
immigration
handles these kind
documents.
of
Yeah.
matters.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
But you
but
know what? I think all of that, okay, all of that Brandy supposedly found, I think that's all fake. I think that is all
Um,
just bluff, because
made it.
that's just to show the public. That is definitely just for her to show the public, like, I didn't know about it until now. I think the family knew about it a very long time
yeah,
ago when they saw the itinerary, because otherwise they would have questioned who Alan is if they didn't know anything about Alan or what Alan was to Hannah.
well,
So
yeah,
when you're
yeah,
writing in your itinerary photos with Alan,
right. They're like,
and
who is
as a
this? Yeah,
yeah, and as a friend, even if you're making your own itinerary to go visit somewhere, you're not going to write down photos with husband, because it's already
Yeah.
presumed that you're going to go take photos at these places that you go visit, right? So family already knew about this whole green card scheme way before the public did. But I think it was a way to deter the public from thinking that Brandy, knew about it before. So I think the way they manipulated in the news was that, Brandy came across these immigration documents. You got to think about the process. Brandy flying all the way from Oahu to Maui. Not that it's a far flight, but taking time out of her day, out of work. Okay. She didn't even go down for the search. So, like, what makes you think she's going to go all the way to Hannah's house in Maui? And then,
Mm,
first of all, get permission. You have to have permission from Hannah if she truly lives there on her own or with her roommate. She has to get permission of someone going into her house, knocking down the door, going through her personal items. The
yeah.
landlord has to let her in if she got approval, or the roommate. So did she get approval from Hannah for going into the house? And all of a sudden she comes across these documents in Maui. When did she go to Maui? Nobody in the general public knew that she flew to Maui. So all of a sudden she did. So now that you think about it, it's like, okay, she didn't fly to Maui. Okay. She didn't come across these documents. The lawyer is just protecting them, saying that the mom came across these documents when honestly, the real truth is that they knew about the situation. And that was the only way to cover up the fact that, she already knew about the situation, as well as the family knew about the situation prior to the public.
well,
So it
even
didn't
with that, with like
look
the finding
shady.
the documents thing,
Huh?
they never, with the finding the documents, they never even told us like when that happened. Like it was just like she went and found documents, and then I remember people asking like, well, was it before the trip?
Yeah.
Was it after
Because
Hannah went
that
missing?
was
And
it.
never
They
an answer. Never an
Yeah, it
Yeah.
answer.
was never a solidified date for that. It was just something that they came up with to like stop the rumors about like the family knew beforehand and whatnot, because they didn't want to incriminate themselves. The family wanted to protect themselves, especially with this lawyer, the fact that they knew about this whole green card scheme going on, because then it looks like they're, what is it called? Abetting and abiding or whatever,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
knowing and being involved with the crime. So it's like that was a way, hence why Sarah Azari is a criminal lawyer. They want to protect themselves from being involved in this crime of, this suspected green card scheme. So I think that whole thing was a whole bluff. I don't think they ever found documents. We never hear about the marriage certificate because Sarah Azari and
Yeah.
Sydney were saying they're waiting to get the marriage certificate and to see if it's a legal marriage with Alan and Hannah, and we never see it. It's never revealed to us. It's never revealed, or it's never actually said about it anymore after that. you know? So it's just, I think all of that was just a way to just get the public's eyes off of them, you know? And just kind of put it all, pin it all on like, you know, Hannah's doing the wrong thing here. You know, we're enablers, but we don't want people to know that we're enablers of her wrongdoing.
Yeah,
you know?
they probably, I wouldn't even be surprised, honestly, if like, because Hannah doesn't seem to be the most like responsible, clearly, person. So like,
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if even she like left those documents or some like with her mother or something, like for safekeeping or whatever. And then she had them because I don't know. To me, I'm like you said, I didn't put that together about how she would have had to fly to like another island and whatever. Like it's a whole ordeal. So for her to like come up with these documents fairly quickly, it seems like, like
Yeah, and all of a
I
sudden
mean,
she finds it. Really?
yeah.
Like, how would
Like
she know
maybe
where to look
she
for it?
like gave them to her mother or something for safekeeping, and I don't know, it could have been another like form of contention between her family and Hannah, like Hannah not making great decisions, and who knows. But
Well, and also I think a huge thing too, I think the father didn't know any of
no,
this.
he didn't.
I
I don't
think
So
he was the
I
only one.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think when he went to LA and met up with all of them, that's when he started finding out all of these things that Hannah was doing and like who Hannah was, you know, and like what she's getting herself involved in. And I think it really scared him, you know, and it made him
Oh,
feel
yeah.
guilty for like, oh my God, my daughter is doing this. Like she's a scam artist and like it's gonna make me lose so much face in front of like everybody back home. And, you know, it's gonna make me think, you know, it's going to make people think like, what am I, you know, what kind of father I am, you know, to my own daughter who's doing this, to the public, you know, to the community of Hawaii, you know, of people supporting them, you know. So I think it's a lot of shame that this whole situation brought on him, you know, to be like the father of the family and to have like my daughter do this, you know, in public's eye. And then on top of that, you know, you see that, you know, it was also kind of revealed to me that, you know, to us that Ryan didn't want anything to do with a GoFundMe. You know, he didn't want to be a part of it because he didn't want to accept anybody's money. That's just kind of like
Right.
the Asian way of things. Like you don't accept people's money for, you know, finding your own daughter, right? And so he was very like humble about that kind of thing. So I think, you know, he would never accept the GoFundMe. So I think that's why eventually you see, you know, the GoFundMe getting switched from Ryan over to, you know, Brandy and Sydney, right? So he wasn't going to spend any of that money, you know, and he didn't want to accept it. He was paying for things out of pocket, you know, while he was searching on the ground. So I just think it was just brought even more shame that there's a GoFundMe trying to raise money for this, and he just felt too humble to take any of it from anybody.
Yeah, it was a lot. I think he well, we know that he had like other stuff going on in his life and everything, and it was just like this was kind of the cherry on top of everything, you know. Somebody was asking any thoughts on the coworkers that snitched on her. So I actually spoke to one of them, and I kind of like gave it to them like a little bit because I actually did think that that was like kind of a crappy thing to do. Like these people, it's interesting because it was like I remember talking to some of them and asking questions and whatever, and they would like talk to me or like talk about Jess or something and say, you guys are saying all this stuff about Hannah and blah blah blah. But then meanwhile, like they go to the Daily Mail and like before Hannah was even found and aired out all this dirty laundry about Hannah, their friend and coworker and whatever. It made me actually feel bad for Hannah. Like it made me continue to just keep trying to put things in perspective. Like she has nobody. These coworkers that she thought, because she told them, right? We know that she told them about this whole green card thing and whatever. You know, that's like so not cool of them now to go and like say all these things. So that probably didn't make her feel great. She probably saw this article, but I actually spoke to one of them recently and was like, have you spoken to Hannah at all? Blah, blah, blah. Because I saw that she was actually friends with her on Hannah's new like Instagram account. Mm-hmm. And she said, no, she hasn't talked to her. And so I was like, yeah, well, I would probably be mad at you too if, you know, you went to the Daily Mail and said all this stuff, like, you know, so it's not surprising. But yeah, it does make me feel like bad for her. There, you know, I think
Well,
everything.
it was kind of sad to me because that article, as I kind of clearly remember, it came out on the 20, like
It was
2
before
days.
she came out. It was before she was found. You know, it came
Yeah,
out.
yeah, but like it came out a couple of days after Ryan passed away.
Yeah.
And that was like really heartbreaking to me because it was like you knew this information, you held on to this information. Say, for example, Brandy or family didn't know about this green card thing, and then you decided not to reveal it till later on when you could have prevented things from happening, or you know, you never know if you actually told the dad and people and the family about what was going on with her, you know. And I was just like, how are you guys? You had talked to Amun. You should have, but you know, to the coworkers told me that they reported to the police right away, and I was like, I don't know if you guys really told the police right away, like what happened, you know, because obviously we see through like the text message between Amun and the coworker, you know, she's asking Amun like what's going on and this and that, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just like, you know, why? And first of all, why didn't Amun come forward and say anything? You know, that's kind
Well,
of
he's like sketchy too. You know, it's
well,
all a
that's what
bunch
I'm
of like
saying.
very sketchy characters that I think
Yeah,
if they
but
like, I mean, look at like how we're picking Hannah and like that whole life apart. I think they were smart enough to know I want to stay away from this, because if you start picking really into any of these people's lives, like there's so much that you could probably find that they don't want to surface, understandably, you know, like understandably. But yeah, you know, in the end, like I do feel bad for her because I think she was stuck in like a weird spot in her life, maybe like a little bit of like a quarter life crisis kind of a
But
deal.
it's also interesting to me because even though Amun is not with Hannah anymore, you still see in that text message that Amun said that a few days ago I talked with Hannah's mom. You know, and it's just like, okay, so they still have somewhat of a relationship, you know, because she's still talking to Amun and, you know, and saying to him stuff like, you know, it's because of her mental state, maybe she hasn't been sleeping. It could be because she's partaking in illegal substances, you know, things like that. So it's like the mom knows about her history with drugs,
Yeah.
you know, could have a mental history, you know, mental health history, not sleeping. So she knows of Hannah's pattern and she knows of Hannah's lifestyle. And for Hannah's mom to talk to Amun about that, then you can see that they still have some type of relationship, you know, maybe in a way that that is a way that she can find out what Hannah's doing, keep tabs on Hannah, because Amun is supposedly right. Like he doesn't do I mean, we don't know if he does substance abuse or he substance abuses or uses substances. Who knows? But obviously he had mentioned that is the reason why they broke up. One of the main reasons because Hannah was involved in substances, right? And so maybe he's not involved or, you know, as much as she. And that is a way for possibly Hannah's mom to stay in touch with what Hannah's doing because Hannah and Amun were together at some point, you know, at that time.
Could be.
Huh?
Yeah, it totally
Yeah.
could be. I mean, I think maybe it's, I don't know. I wonder, you know, it's so hard to say. Family stuff is so weird. And clearly this was like a very dysfunctional family that with a lot of drama that probably would have been best kept never to be brought to the public, like ever. It should have been settled like privately when they found out whatever information. They could have just said, hey guys, we have something, we're going to follow this lead. If we need anybody's help, we'll come back, but thank you for everything everybody did. Hire a PI, end it. And I don't know. It's a lot of very interesting characters with very interesting ideas that did a lot of really weird things. And I don't know. I kind of like hope that they all just go away and we never have to talk about them ever again. But at the same time, I really do still want to know what happened. I want to know what happened. We were so invested in this girl's safety and still are. Honestly, I still kind of think about her sometimes. And I'm like, I wonder if she is actually okay.
I do too. I get that feeling too, because you know what's so crazy to me is that I think I've talked with you, Melissa, about it too. It's like, is that Bayasimi account under her
Who's running it?
control?
Yeah.
Or is it not now? Because I'm kind of
I don't think it's real. Do you guys think it's real?
well, that account was created several months you know, or whatever before she went missing, right? Like a month before she went missing, like in November, like early November,
I
something
do
like
think it's her, but it is weird that like it's Laurie's hand in the one picture, and
that. Her
I
ring.
do, yeah, I do think that it is her, but I don't know. I kind of get like a weird feeling that it's being like manipulated in a specific way. I just, I don't know.
I get a very weird vibe because if you guys remember when she crossed the border and made that creative statement, that statement was said on behalf of Hannah, but made through Laurie. So it wasn't like straight from a horse's mouth. It was Laurie speaking on behalf of Hannah. And then
Yeah,
now
I
the
actually sent a message to Hannah saying like, I think that your aunt is being very manipulative of you. Like I actually worry for her in that way. Like I do think that Laurie is a manipulative person. I mean, you know it. You've had like you've spoken to her. Yes.
control.
So like I think that I don't know. I don't know what could be done about that. I mean, Hannah's a grown adult. She can make her decisions and whatever, and she's gonna have to live with whatever decision she makes. But like, I don't know. It's weird that we have not heard from her at all, like at all. But we have heard like ad nauseum from Sydney and Laurie, where we're like, please stop talking. Like,
well, Hannah was posting on, you know, if that was her, like on her Instagram for like a few days straight, right? And then all of a sudden it's silent.
Yeah, then all of a sudden it stops. Like, and then you see her in Laurie's videos, which to me was so like, I don't know. To me, I was like, this is gross. In Laurie's, like her TikTok videos, like of the Airbnb and everything like that.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Hannah, like in those videos. And I'm like, to me, that's so sick. Where I'm like, it feels very much like she knows like that people are gonna watch, and it kind of feels like she's playing a game of like, is it Hannah? Is it not Hannah? Like, watch my videos and like see if it is. And then even her posting recently about something like about the redwoods, and I'm like, right, like she's posting about the redwoods, and I'm like, what are you doing? This feels sick.
Are you serious, girl?
Yeah, I'm like, this just feels like mentally unwell. Like this just feels like you are purposefully playing a game with everybody. For what reason? I don't understand. I just don't.
To get attention.
Yeah, it's not okay. Like they're being serious.
Yeah, think about it. Her career is what, social media. So I think like she's trying to like pull strings to like, you know, people's heartstrings or like get attention by emotion. So pulling people's emotion, playing with people's emotions to like try to attract, you know, viewers and stuff to her page. But I see now that like her TikTok page, I mean, it's weird to me. Like she's not getting a lot of views lately as much as she used to. But then her following is going up, which is really interesting to me.
She's making a lot of new accounts.
Either that or she's paying for followers.
She could, yeah. Because I would actually be so surprised. Well, I guess at this point, like if you weren't in it, you might not know what was going on with the whole Hannah thing. I'm surprised that she actually kept any videos up on her TikTok.
She did, right? She kept those videos for.
Yeah, she kept up all the Hannah videos, like most of them of her, like, you know, I have no more tears left to cry, like all that kind of stuff, you know. I'm really surprised she kept that up.
Yeah, she deleted everything after. Like, remember, like when there was like a silence of like 2 weeks with the whole case, and then she posted, she's like, "I'm back."
Yeah.
She has those up, and then everything after that, she's deleted. That's based off of Hannah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering with Hannah, like, I don't think, I don't know. Like I said, I am worried for her because this whole thing. Okay, here's the thing. Either this happened and everybody was in their right mind, right? Then this is like crazy behavior. This is psychotic behavior. Or if she's unwell, mentally unwell, and all these things happened and she was on some sort of substance or whatever, she needs help. The girl needs help, right?
Yeah.
She needs to get help. And as far as we know, that, I mean, I don't know, and I don't think it's like that we have to know, like, if she's getting help, that's not her business, right? And who knows, this may be why she's being quiet. But I would hope that they're taking the steps then to get her help. If this was like a breakdown, a mental breakdown, and then if her, she's all messed up from everything going on, because if this was that she's okay, and when she crossed into the United States from Mexico and they're like, we checked her out, she's all good, this was not normal. Like, this was not okay. Those text messages were not normal. Those text messages were not okay. Right. So if you're telling me that you're fine, but you sent all this stuff, something is the matter. Something is not connecting,
I think she needs help, yeah.
So I would hope that they're going to get help in some way. They probably are. I remember me. I would hope that, like, they would get her help. Use that GoFundMe money. Get the girl help. Everybody probably needs counseling and therapy after this.
Well, I mean, it's under Sydney's control, so who knows?
Yeah, she's not going to get it.
She's pissed off at Hannah. I don't think she's going to try to help her anymore.
No, she's not going to get it. But yeah, I just wonder. I'm like, it's only two scenarios, right? Either, okay, you're fine, but then that doesn't explain what happened, or you need some sort of help. And I hope that she gets it. I hope that they just go on, live your life. Don't do this ever again. Like, learn from this situation and whatever. Go live your life at this point. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I hope she gets help. Yeah, because now thinking about it, I don't think she's probably mentally well, or if the ex boyfriend, like he said, that she uses drugs and stuff like that. Maybe that's what she was trying to escape. Go to recovery. Maybe
either that. Yeah, maybe she just went into, like, what you call it, like, gosh, it just slips my mind. Like, when you relapse, maybe she went into a relapse. You don't know.
Possible. It's possible. Who knows? Like,
could be anything.
We know that she was into all this very, like, enlightenment kind of stuff. We don't know. This is the thing. Like, we have no idea what she did her whole time in Los Angeles. We have no idea.
Or Mexico. She was in Mexico for like a month.
We have no idea. But more specifically, like, in Los Angeles, like, after she sent the messages where she's like, I had a spiritual, like, awakening, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? What was she doing before? We have no idea where she was staying. We have no idea what she was doing.
What her life was like.
Right? So, like, we don't know. Could she have just done something, taken something, was not in her right mind, sent these messages, lost her phone, and then...
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think she could have smuggled that stuff on the plane, but I think, like, when she was in LA, she had to connect because she knows a lot of people in LA in that scene. So knowing those people in that scene, she could probably easily met up with someone that she knew, again, close to the Grove, 2 days in a row.
Totally.
Going on a bender, having fun, putting herself out there, and then coming back to the airport to get her luggage, which is like, oh, shoot, I should probably tell my family that I'm not going to make it, and send all these crazy messages, and then just disappear and go all nutso,
Yeah.
So, we honestly don't know, but I just feel like and honestly, like, if I was Hannah and, like, let's say, like, I would be embarrassed by my actions.
Yes. It's
if
probably,
I was to take substances and act that way, I would definitely not want to come out to the public and admit that I do these substances, and that is the reason why I texted and caused all this fear and panic, because then for sure everybody and their mom is gonna hate me.
Understandable. Like, totally. I totally, like, get that, where I'm like, I would understand why she just doesn't even want to address it, whatever, but, like, it kind of became a thing. To where I'm like, maybe just say it, get it over with, let everybody know this is what happened, because I think by her just letting it go, it does do a disservice to, like, missing persons in general, taking missing persons cases seriously. Like, if she just clears it up and says, I messed up, this is what happened, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to do better, move on with my life, I think we could all respect her for that.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
I think so. I don't think anybody holds any, like, ill will towards any of these people. It's just like, just admit whatever it was. We can all move on. Everybody.
But I don't think she ever will. I mean, maybe that's
might not. Well, she will when
her taking accountability for anything, maybe in her life, or have really had responsibility to, because, you know, you see it like, you know, and she's supposed to be at work. Her coworkers have said that she was supposed to be back on November 20th. Her not even making a call while she's in Mexico to work saying, hey, I'm extending my vacation, or telling anybody that I'm not going to be back in Maui to work, or her shop manager. Like, that's already irresponsible. You know, for you to be an irresponsible person, to not have accountability. I mean, she's just going to not even tell her boss that she's not going to be making it back to work. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there has to be some way she's eluding something. She's just trying to escape something. So that's why she's not telling anybody anything. She knew that there's people expecting her back in Maui, at least, and she knew her aunt was expecting her in New York. So that just shows a type of irresponsible, childlike mind behavior that she has, you know, being unfortunately such a grown adult that she is. But I mean, that just shows forth what type of person she is. You know?
Like I said, I really do think that maybe she had like a mental breakdown. I think she had a mental breakdown or something, and her life was not on a trajectory that maybe she was hoping that it would be, and then all this craziness with her boyfriend and fake husband and the fake other wife and whatever, and you know, like I think she just was like, forget it, I don't care, everything, just I need to start over, I need to go, and I'm gonna go, and whatever.
Yeah, because
which was not responsible.
I think at that point when she missed her connecting flight, I feel like that was her time to like shine, or not. Like, that was her time to get away and make the decision. Since she was already in California, Amun had, remember, told the coworker she had some stuff to take care of in Cali. Right. So I think that was her point in time, like saying, okay, I'll never get this opportunity again. Or if I do, it's not going to be for a while. I'm stuck as is, so I might as well just forget everything and just go and do my thing.
Yeah, whatever.
And leave it all be, because that, like, you know, that was her reasoning of just leaving everything behind, right? It was just like she had no plan, so it's just, might as well just go with the flow. And if I see an opportunity, I'm going to go after it, right? So that's why
I think she's very much like that. She's very much like, you know, I mean, we saw like her Pinterest and everything. A lot of it was like living off grid and like disappearing and like
make quick money.
So like, I think she just was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this. Who knows when I'm gonna get this opportunity ever again? And whatever, start a new life. Good for you. Go ahead, go start your new life, and hope it's better than what you've been experiencing in the past. But I don't think it started out as anything crazy, and then they just blew it completely out of proportion and went with it for whatever reason.
But also, you know, my thing too is like, you know, with Aunt Laree saying, like, you know, people had asked Aunt Laree in some of the TikToks, like, how's Hannah doing? And Aunt Laree responds, she's healing. You know, this is after obviously she's like in Mexico or like whatever, and saying like she's healing. And it's just like, okay, like, what is she healing from? Is she healing from the fact that you told her about her dad? She's healing from the fact that she was supposedly missing? Or what is she really healing from? Because she was in Mexico for 30 days, not even a care in the world to get back to her coworker or her aunt.
Or call
anybody. And yet she's now, like, what is she healing from exactly? Because that girl had 30 days to heal. I mean, you know what I mean? So, like, what are you really doing? You know?
She got a surgery? She's healing from that?
I don't know. What kind of surgery is she getting?
I don't know if she's into that kind of stuff. I mean, the girl, you know.
Hey, she's gonna make money, you know. Only fan it. No, I'm being
Oh my gosh.
And do you guys think man, the story, because we're like the last of the dinosaurs, right? Covering the case. Do you guys think that eventually it will die? I think maybe we'll hear from Hannah disappearing again. I don't know, because people said that this is not the first time.
Right.
So,
I you know, it's interesting because if she was smart, if any of these people were smart, they could take this really and like go with it. You know, like use it in something good. And she could, like, if she wants to work in music or whatever, she could totally like make a name for herself and do that, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that the way they're doing it right now, the longer that they take to say anything, the longer they take to clear it up.
The longer, nobody's gonna care.
Yeah, nobody's gonna care anymore. It's gonna get to a point nobody's gonna care. Everyone's gonna be like, okay, whatever. Like, if and also, like, I don't know. You look at like her other Instagram account. She doesn't have like hardly any followers. She has like 1,200 followers on that account.
Yeah.
So already people are like, whatever. But I said it from the beginning, where I was like, the first person to come out and tell the truth of the story, like the actual truth, is gonna get the people's like respect. And ultimately,
Yeah.
none of them want to do it. I don't know why. It's so weird.
Because there's too much to hide. So.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. But I think even if they said what happened, they would get a lot of respect for it. They're probably going to get some backlash for it.
Yeah.
But I think that we could be like, you know what? They fessed up. They said what happened, and that's it. But I think that I don't know. Like, I don't know if there is enough of a story here to make it into a like whole documentary. You know, like, I don't know, unless they get the family and they get their side of it. I don't think that there's enough to, because it's a lot of like, well, what happened? We don't know what happened.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, so how can they make like an actual documentary out of just like what we are speculations and everything, you know? So I think, yeah, if who knows, they could already be in the process of making one for all we know.
Maybe that's why they're not talking.
Yeah, so like, unless they get the family in on a documentary, I don't think anybody's going to be all that interested, because there's nothing to tell really at this point, you know. But
well,
yeah,
there's too many holes in the story. You
yeah,
know?
there's too many. It's too many things that you could go down, and it's like, it's going to get to a certain point where people want the story to be like wrapped up. And what you're going to get to the end of the documentary, and we're going to be like, we have no idea what happened at all. You know? So like,
I just think it's not going to be a solid documentary unless you actually have Hannah in the documentary.
They need them. They need them. I mean, I think it'd be great if they could get them. It would be so entertaining and so good. If not, then no. But yeah, I think that I don't know. They'll probably capitalize on it in one way, shape, or another, unless they just want to move on from it, which I get too, which would stink for us because I do want to know what happened. But I'm also okay with like, letting it go.
Yeah,
letting them just go off into obscurity and do your thing, whatever.
Yeah, it just honestly sucks because, like, you know, when you're just like, you know, any of us who've been researching for hours and hours and like just dedicated so much time just out of the kindness of our heart and, you know, generosity of trying to help the family, talking with the family, you know, between Marie and Sydney and trying to really help them and navigate through the whole thing. It's just like, and then we're kind of like a slap in the face. Like,
yeah, they're like, well, we never asked you to do any of that. It's like, well,
they actually did.
Yeah, they asked about it for help. So,
okay.
you know, you got people on cameras like 24 hours a day. You know, you got people looking in the metros. Ray went up and down the metro station himself, you know, people on the ground searching. Like, that's crazy to me. And then you're just going to kind of like give the people a slap in the face. Like, oh, no, we don't need to tell her any story. We're just going to save our peace. Like, you know, we're going to heal and this and that. Like, it's just kind of rude, you know?
It's like, come on, like, give us something just to end it and everybody can move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they don't want to, then all right. Well, hopefully help. I don't know.
That's sad. But well, we'll see what happens. You know, we'll catch up. Before we're close to the hour, but I would like for you guys to shout out your social medias. I have you guys' links in the description, but still for the people just coming in right now, your TikTok channel or Instagrams.
Mine's up here. I don't know if you guys can see it. I put it up there.
So it's so good.
Yeah, my IG is at Miss Jessica 808, and then my TikTok is at Miss Jess 808, and then I don't really have much on my YouTube yet, but I'm just still transferring stuff. It's at Pauhana Podcast. Let me get out of the way. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, there you go.
Pauhana Podcast.
So really, the only account that I ever, my dog is like barking in his sleep. The only account that I use for social media, like publicly, is my TikTok account, which is Melissa Marquesano R, I think. I am so bad with like all the social media stuff, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it is.
Yeah,
I've been trying to, like, I don't know. I have a couple things in the works
come
to
over to
kind of
YouTube.
switch it up.
We need,
Yeah, I
we
know.
need
People have
to-
said I might.
yeah.
Thing that I have
You
coming up,
you
it
guys
might
did a lot of good work, a lot of good
be.
work, and I was going to see you guys because a lot of people on YouTube, they don't have TikTok, and vice versa. Some
Oh,
people don't have YouTube because they're more into TikTok, and
uh-huh.
Yeah.
so thanks to you guys, I was getting a lot of information or stuff that I couldn't because it was so much. It was
It was
just
so much.
yeah. So, but man, we're past the hour, and I'm glad I'm actually, what I you guys made me think a lot. Um, I don't know. I might let the case go unless something comes up. I think on my side, I owe the viewers, people that watch, on this side an ending. So I'll just for the people that still want to know,
Yeah.
or people are telling me, come on, move on and this and that. I'm like, I
It's
just
hard. It's hard to
yeah.
move on from this one. I don't know what it is. That's what I think we all, it's like the same thing. There's not much more to say until they say something. So, but I don't know. I've retired from this case before and then
That's
come
it.
back the next day. So, because who knows? So they might pull something tomorrow. Who knows if
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, remember we thought everything was over, like
Yeah.
those weeks that everybody went silent, and then all of a sudden Hannah starts posting on IG, and we're just like, what?
Yeah, maybe somebody watched this. Who knows? But yeah, I
And
agree.
then all those questions,
Yeah, no, I agree. I would like some closure, and I'll just keep an eye out. And
Someone's asking about where was the dad's funeral. So last update that I have is from a source that's close with the family, is that so far the GoFundMe donations have not been used towards any funeral services. The dad's funeral has not happened yet. The dad is back in Hawaii. He's cremated. But as far as services, it is unknown at this time. It has not happened at this time. I feel for sure, though, I think a lot of it is because the fiance is going through a really hard grieving process right now. And I think she has other things going on with her too that I can't really say on here. But there's a lot going on, and I don't think all of that has been completely planned out yet. So. Well, and I honestly think they're going to keep it very private. I don't think they're going to publish it or make it known to the public anywhere about like when his services are or anything like that. I just think they're just going to have a very like intimate kind of, with their own family and everything.
Yeah.
So it's just very unfortunate, that Ryan has passed. It just honestly is a very unfortunate like thing that came out of this whole thing is him. Honestly, it's like the biggest thing. I think.
Yeah, it could be definitely a big reason why they don't want to say exactly what happened, because if it was so like dumb for somebody to lose their life over it, that's tough. That's kind of tough.
May he rest in peace, man.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. The poor guy. He was suffering. He was suffering.
Yeah, the latest that we saw was I don't know if you guys saw Steve Fisher's post that he received the medical examiner report back.
Yeah.
With their findings and stuff. So you can see in there that it was really tragic, and they put a lot of it, they did, the medical examiner did mention something about how his what he did had attributed guilt, right? The father guilt being in Hannah's life. So that was part of it. So it's really sad to see that, regardless of all the other things that he had going on in his life, that it actually was, obviously one of the reasons why he decided to do what he did. So, it is really sad situation.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for joining the live stream, and let's collab in the future, or anything. I'm in LA, and if there's any cases going on that you guys are covering, you guys want me to search for something, I'm willing to just, whenever.
Yeah, all the fires and everything settled out, or obviously like the city is going through chaos, I'm sure. With that stuff.
Yeah, the Altadena area, it's still going for what I heard yesterday. There's so much stuff going on right now here in LA. It's crazy. It's overwhelming. Yeah, it's people have been asking me to talk about the politics. I'm not a politics channel, more of a true crime, but right here, right now, man, LA is just crazy.
Well, actually, I do want to bring up before we do go, because I mean, I kind of haven't had any latest updates on it, but like, I don't know if you've seen that I've been kind of covering a little bit here and there on Janae Bryan, and her case, you know, and she's originally from Pennsylvania, and then she went to school at Cornell, and then she had last sightings in LA, and she literally, I believe, went missing like 2 days after Hannah went missing, around the same area in downtown LA. And so her sister actually came out to do a search briefly. This was like a month or so ago, 2 months ago, in LA, in Koreatown, everywhere, putting her posters up. And so supposedly she has been seen like 9 times around, you know, like on that, I think it's the M3 line, I want to say.
Okay.
And yeah, and so and then the mom is also missing, but she can't be kind of reported missing because she had told the family that she wants us, you know, part ways in a sense, or she needs her time. But you know, she hasn't been back to her house in Pennsylvania. Supposedly, Janae graduated from Cornell in 2023, but advisor from Cornell confirmed that Janae never finished graduation. So, you know, we're trying to look for like what happened between, you know, graduation, and then supposedly she moved back to Pennsylvania after graduation to be with her mom. But now, like, mom and Janae, sister, did a welfare check in April for her. They were fine at the house, but now they're not there because now that they've been cited in LA multiple times. So we're just trying to figure out where they are. I mean, the mom's been seen at like Goodwill and like Hollywood and like various shelters in downtown LA. Trying to figure out where Janae is. Some people say that, or, you know, sister has said that like there's possibilities that she could be with a pimp. You know, so just very unsure of where she's at, but supposedly she's somewhere in downtown LA or LA area. We're just not sure yet. So
Yeah, well, Koreatown is very active. You know, it's there's a lot of things going on. It's close to MacArthur Park. I'm gonna look into it, and or if you have a link, whenever you get the chance, send it to me, and maybe I can drive down there. You know, after work, or you know, whenever I have some free time, and I can ask people around, or also
Yeah.
within the communities, you know, here, and I can give you
Yeah.
some information. Yeah, that's
that'd be
wow.
great.
Yeah, Melissa, Miss Jess, thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate you
Yeah.
guys. I appreciate the time. I know probably you guys had, you know, could have been doing something else, or maybe take the time, you know, to come and do the live stream. I
It's like
really
Melissa's
appreciate it.
bedtime over there.
Oh, that's true. I forgot. Yeah, New
It's
York,
all
right?
good. It's all good.
Or you're like
I'm in New York.
you're like it's like almost 11 or
Almost
12?
11. Yeah, like a quarter to 11.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. No
Yeah,
problem.
thank you too, Miss Jess,
I
and
enjoyed it.
we'll keep in touch. And
Yeah,
Hannah,
for sure.
we want to hear from you.
Yes,
Okay.
Hannah.
All right,
Yay.
you guys have a wonderful one.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Bye.